Now it's time for your eye in the sky for the next 6 weeks' weather. Brought to you by Hawkeye Pro from Ravensdown, where the proof is in the paddock.
Yes, it is time for weather, brought to us by our very good friends at Ravensdown. Tony T is our weather expert extraordinaire from Blue Skies. G'day, Tony. Welcome to the show,
Andy.
mate. Lovely to
Thank
see
you.
you again. Not in person today, but online. Great to have you. Okay, what have we got today? What's El Nino is well and truly official, right? We'll talk about that. But what are we expecting? I see some warm temperatures coming. Is this around the country?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we've talked about this being a potentially warmer than normal winter right since, well, back in April sort of time frame. And this is just a continuation of it. I'm almost tempted to say that the weather event we had last week with the heavy rain and the snowfall on the Canterbury High Country and so on was winter, that was it. I'm not quite going to commit myself that far at this point in time, because we are in the middle of that 6-week period that is traditionally our peak winter season, from sort of late June through July into that early August time frame is our peak winter time, and we're in that right now. But it does look as though the next 6 weeks, I run the 6-week outlook for my clients today, and that is suggesting warmer than normal temperatures for the next 6 weeks overall, the odd cold southerly outbreak possible, but nothing major, and certainly no trend towards cold. It also looks as though August is going to see quite a bit of high pressure dominated, relatively settled weather as well. So that's going to reduce the opportunities for storms and heavy rainfalls and snowfalls and things like that. So, I think there's some good reasons to expect that the rest of the winter season will stay relatively settled and definitely leaning towards the milder side of things.
That's a big call, Tony. We've had winter last weekend.
Yeah.
And I know you wouldn't say that lightly. So you are obviously seeing some fairly strong indicators that that's it.
Well, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to commit myself wholly to that point of view,
Yeah.
but I raise it as, I think, a credible idea to hold in your mind at the moment, that maybe we have had the worst of our winter weather last 10 days, and that from here on in, even though we're in the middle of our winter season, conditions are probably going to trend to a more settled and milder pattern in the short term, at least. Things will change though, because as you've got there in front of you, Andy, I know the points from the seasonal outlook that I sent out to clients yesterday. So that covers the August, September, October months specifically, but also looking ahead through into the summer period. And whilst that August month does look relatively mild, relatively settled, not totally settled. You won't say that it's a month where we get no rainfall, but it's just a month that has a settled look to it. Things really do kick up in September and October. We start to see the westerlies kick in. That's the El Nino influence, which is baked into the atmosphere now, and it's just going to roll on right through the spring and through the summer period.
I'm interested in that graphic that was just on the screen there, and it said dry north and east. Northland to Hawke's Bay, trending dry all spring. Well, they've had quite a bit of rain. They've had quite a bit of rain. Well, they haven't had a lot of rain in that area, have they? So they're starting off dry.
Yeah, some of those parts of those areas anyway will be starting off relatively dry. I mean, obviously there was some pretty heavy rainfalls pretty frequently through the first half of the year in parts of those areas, Northland, Bay of Plenty, Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, those sort of areas. So some of those areas have had quite significant rainfall totals for the year so far. They'll be trending well above normal for their annual rainfall to the year to date. But not all of those regions experienced that. Some of those rainfalls were quite localized, quite isolated to individual districts. And so, yeah, a trend to a drier spring is going to hurt some areas more than others.
One of the things I've noticed here in the rainfall is Southland, the standout wet. I don't think Southland farmers are going to love you very much for that, Tony.
No, well, this is your traditional El Nino pattern, of course, which is that as the westerlies ramp up, Southland and indeed South Otago, Fiordland, even parts of the west coast as well, tend to end up stuck in that persistent westerly wind flow that is the characteristic of El Nino. And as the fronts and troughs pass through, those areas catch every drop of rain that's going to fall out of those frontal systems. Whereas not all of those frontal systems make it further north. And the further north you go in New Zealand, the less likely that is. And that's what underscores the dry Northland, Bay of Plenty, Gisborne, East Coast type discussion as well.
Last week, when we were talking, you mentioned that this El Nino might not be atypical. Has anything changed in the last week to either strengthen that thought or weaken it from your point of view for what you're seeing?
Well, I think we're getting to the point now where we're no longer forecasting an El Nino for the spring and summer. It is here. Okay, by any measure that you want to apply, it is in existence. If we were in midsummer right now, the temperature anomalies in the tropical Pacific would put us in a moderate El Nino state. We're not there yet. We're still climbing towards whatever that peak is going to be. So there's, increased pressure that we're going to suggest it's a strong to super El Nino, if you want to use that term. But it's there, it's happening, and it's only a matter of time before it couples up to our weather patterns and starts to be the main driver of those weather patterns. As I said, there are reasons to suggest that may not happen so much in the month of August, but I think it will happen from September onwards. So given that that's locked in, the question then becomes, what are the details of it? What are the flavors of it? What are the wrinkles, the intricacies that are going to roll over the country and affect different regions in different ways? And one of the parameters that we can look at, that's an additional atmospheric measure that we use, has remarkable similarity to where we were in 1982-83. And that was an El Nino season that, yes, it was dry in the east of both islands, but it also had a lot of southwesterly wind changes. The wind alternated between the dreaded nor'west and the sou'west, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. We had a lot of thunderstorms and hailstorms in Canterbury as those changes moved through in the months of, the second half of November, December, through January of that summer. That summer was the summer of the Hallsville tornado in January 1983 that affected that suburb of Christchurch, not too far from where I lived at the time, in fact. And so there are indications that rather than being an El Nino that is relentlessly nor'west, super hot, super drying, this could be an El Nino event that is a mixture of northwest, southwest type changes.
Which will alleviate, for those heavy rainfalls, will alleviate some of the worst of the dry in the areas that are lucky to get the thunderstorms, right? But then...
Well, yes, that tends to be very localized, though. Yeah. This is the problem. Yeah. So you might have 30 or 40 rain gauges across an area like Canterbury or Marlborough, and when one of those southwest changes works its way through, only a few of them register significant rainfall. The rest of them, if they register anything at all, will register just a few millimeters. And each change will be a little bit different, and each area will get more or less of that localized rainfall with each change that goes through. So it's not a reliable rain, and it's not a rain that necessarily impacts the whole region equally. So that's going to be the problem with that type of season. As you say, you might get lucky and get yourself under a 15, 20 millimeter rainfall one weekend, and that might be your only rainfall of that magnitude for several months.
Is it? So it's not as simple as saying west wet, east dry for this?
Well, that's the simple way to explain it, yes. And if you want one sentence and you want simple, that's as good as it gets. But inevitably, the pattern on the ground becomes more complex than that. And particularly if we do see these southwest changes pushing through, that's what's going to make places like Southland, Otago, particularly coastal Otago, really changeable in terms of their weather patterns. They're going to alternate every day between a showery, cold unsettled day, and then a settled day, and then a warm nor'west day, and then back to the cold again. And they're just going to be chasing their tail the whole time. Whereas other parts of the country, particularly in the North Island, say, those cold fronts will be fewer and further between as they work their way north. They'll have much longer settled periods. And that's why the signal is there for dryness in those parts of the country.
Tony, we've seen a Northern Hemisphere heat wave. In fact, they're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Does that correlate to us? Are we going to see a particularly hot summer, do you think, or is there no relation?
Well, statistically, there's no relation. People like to say there is. People say, well, I can remember whenever it's been hot in Europe, it's been hot subsequent in New Zealand. And that may be true, but there's no statistical relationship that we can pin the data into that suggests that. And you've got to remember also that the characteristic pattern that's occurring in Europe at the moment isn't universal heat, okay? There are areas that are hotter than normal, substantially hotter than normal, but there are also areas that are colder than normal at the same time. Different parts of the overall continent. And that's a reflection of the fact that these heat and cold areas are set up by standing waves in the atmosphere that are the result of convective patterns across the Pacific. So this is the El Nino actually already impacting weather in some parts of the world. It creates what we call an omega block, which is a wave in the jet stream. And inside that wave, in between where the jet stream is producing that wavy pattern, you get concentrated heat or cold. And those are the patterns that we're seeing in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment. There's no substantive evidence that we see that sort of pattern in an El Nino summer in the Southern Hemisphere, and certainly not in the New Zealand area.
All right, Tony T, Blue Skies Weather, if people want to log in or get your personalised forecast, how do they do that?
That's right. Well, check out the blueskies.co.nz website, and you'll find a page there called Join, where you can join the subscription service for the Outlooks. The Outlooks are a weekly 6-week outlook that I send out usually on a Tuesday. Today's one will be going out very shortly to paid clients, and a monthly seasonal outlook that looks ahead for in some detail at the next 3 months, but also in less detail at the following 3 to 6 months as well. So you get 2 products there for the price of one for the service. It's an annual subscription. You can pop your credit card details in on the website from the join button, and away you go.
Tony T, appreciate your time, mate. Talk to you again next Tuesday. I'll be over in Christchurch and we'll be able to chat in person. So looking forward to seeing you.
Look forward to it, Andy. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Rightio, always great to catch up with Tony. A great forecast, as I said. Yeah, go to blueskies.co.nz/join and you will be able to get his latest forecast.
Next Gen Tech. Backed by 40 years of soil science, Hawkeye Pro delivers insights every 10 metres to lift your farm's efficiency and sustainability and profitability. If you want more proof in the paddock, visit hawkeye.farm today.